how are you managing then to balance local offerings with international offerings in 2023, and looking forward then to 2024? How's that mix really looking like for you?
That's a very, very interesting question, actually. So when we look at our, local offerings, we actually tend to look at it in three different ways, right? The first is, how do we think about these shows and movies traveling, within their core audience? How do they find an audience more broadly across the country? And how do they travel, across the world, right? And on all the three fronts, 2023 has been a great year for Amazon Prime Video. We actually have almost 60% of our customers today who stream content, shows and movies in four or more than four languages. So in a way, we are actually expanding the linguistic palette when it comes to entertainment of the country, right? Almost half the viewership of our local originals actually happens outside the home state in other parts of the country, right? And this obviously is aided by the fact that we obsess quite a bit about providing high quality localization, right, in the form of language dubs and subtitles and so on, so that customers across the country and across the world find it easy to jump into a story, find it easy to access another part of the world as a culture. The third is how these stories are now traveling globally, Samita. And this is a trend that we have seen happen, even sort of kind of really accelerate over 2023. In fact, so much so that Indian shows and movies on Prime Video have been in the top 10 list globally in 47 out of the last 52 weeks. Indian shows and movies on Prime Video have been in the global top 10 on Prime Video list in 47 out of the last 52 weeks. Right? Now, to me, that's an example. And, one in every six in those top 10 lists is actually an Indian show or a movie. And we don't need to look any further. I mean, we look at our slate just this year. We look at shows like, Made in Heaven that you love, and we love the fact that you love it. You look at shows like Fuzzy. Fuzzy was streamed in 170 countries in the first week of its launch, right? We look at our licensed movies like Jailer that entered the top 10 list in many, many countries, like Pathan. When you see this happening consistently, it tells us two things. One, we are able to provide that large reach for our creators to find a global audience. And second is that Indian storytelling is resonating very, very widely across the globe, right? So to me, when I look at our local investments, it's a combination of, how well are we creating stories, culturally deep-rooted, authentic storytelling for customers that, that exist across the globe. Right? And obviously, we balance that alongside all of our international programming, right? Our global tentpoles, right? Like Citadel or, The Rings of Power or Wheel of Time. Almost 75% of our customers in India actually watch international content in English and other languages. We actually localize a lot of our international content into local Indian languages. So it goes both ways. It's Indian stories finding a global audience on the global stage, and it is international stories finding very deep and wide acceptance in the country.
Now, speaking of viewership or subscription, have both of these stabilized post the acceleration caused by the pandemic?
There's obviously what the pandemic-induced lockdowns did was really expose customers to the sort of the universe of high quality cinematic, digital video entertainment, right? And it is a time where we were able to offer customers a very wide selection across shows and movies. In fact, pioneering new ways of bringing shows and movies to customers, right? We were the first to offer direct streaming movies in the country, and we have invented many other ways of doing that. So a lot of that has actually resulted in customers across the country and households across the country now seeing Prime Video as a destination that provides a very diverse and a very consistent cadence of entertainment. We continue to be, by the way, India continues to be a front runner amongst new customer adoption for Prime Video globally, right? It's to me a reflection of just how the momentum hasn't let up, if I may. The second is Prime members in India. Actually, India is number one on the percentage of Prime members who stream on Prime Video every month. Okay. I'll repeat that. India is actually number one on the charts on the percentage of Prime members who stream on Prime Video every month out of all the Prime Video locales worldwide. Now, the combination of all of this should tell you that not only is the customer interest and excitement for our programming continues to remain steadfast, our commitment to delivering on that expectation continues to remain steadfast.
So, Sushant, we're talking about OTTs and we have to talk about pricing and competition. Now, competition is really hotting up in the space. There are mega investments coming in on the back of the India growth story. Then you have YouTube and short video platforms also that are gaining traction. There's likelihood of a potential JV between two OTTs. Screen sharing, is also an issue for some of your competitors, and which is why, they are sort of banning it. But keeping all of that in mind, all of those scenarios in mind and the landscape in mind, do you plan to cut prices of some of your plans to gain an edge?
The first is not to look at it as one. Again, it goes back to the point about heterogeneity, right, of the Indian customer, and therefore to not look at it as one singular sort of direction, right? We tend to think of the opportunity in multiple different segments and multiple different classifications, if I may, right? So just like we talked about heterogeneity across languages and genres, we obviously also acknowledge that there is significant heterogeneity across affordability, right? And therefore, our view towards how we drive penetration and continue to maintain our growth in India that we have seen over the last 7 years continues to rely on both product innovations, many of which actually are worldwide first, and also look at every customer in itself and identify the right pricing product mix that we believe will maximize the ability for customers to not just come in, but continue to remain long-term members. And therefore, instead of looking at it as one isolated view to just one price, I don't think there is one price. Neither do I think there is one product for all of India. Just as there is no one programming approach for all of India. And we'll continue. Prime Video Mobile Edition is a very good example, right? Where we saw this opportunity for bringing a service or a product proposition for largely the people who spend a lot of time on their mobile devices and are seeking access to entertainment through mobile devices. And we built that out, and we continue to experiment different ways of doing that.
So no clear price cuts coming in, at least in the near future, for consumers. But I want to know now from you, some people are watching content on mobile and, of course, on bigger screens. What's really the ratio now? Are more people watching content on mobile or bigger screens?
The share of how much people are also accessing content on the large screens through their connected TVs and their living room devices is actually going up very, very sharply, right? So we are very excited by those trends as well. Obviously, we have a very large, thanks to the infrastructure and the low data costs and accessible hardware, we have a very large mobile streaming audience in the country, which is great, which we love. But at the same time, we are seeing incredibly strong growth in the living room, in the connected TV space as well. So that's another area that we are focused on making sure that Prime Video is available through every screen. And that's been a focus for us and a mantra for us for a while now, just ubiquitous device coverage, which is super critical.
And what's the outlook for 2024? What partnerships or acquisitions are on the anvil?
Yeah, I mean, it's partnerships is interesting because we have a variety of partnerships, obviously with studios, with creators that we talked a little while ago. Also partnerships with partners like telcos, right, or MVPDs or broadband operators, where the idea is how do we make Prime Video even more accessible to their customers, right? So there's a lot of work that we have obviously been doing for the last 4 or 5 years and will continue to. The other is partnerships with other, streaming services, right? So which is our Prime Video channels proposition, something that we launched a couple of years ago in India. And today we have almost 23 partners, Prime Video channels, who collectively bring more than 28,000 hours of entertainment additionally to the Prime Video experience, right? And customers can join any of these partner services through simple subscriptions. Now, we will continue to expand that, both in terms of the number of partners that we have through Prime Video channels, but also the diversity, once again, of the genres and the programming that we offer to customers, right? So we've launched 9 Prime Video channel partners this year, and they're all so different from each other, right? So we have had, BBC Player, BBC Kids. We in fact, launched Anime Times just yesterday. We have had Chopal earlier in the year. We have had Fan Code that makes live sports access, so much easier. So, you know, partnerships. We realize that not just partnerships in the streaming space, but a lot more public-private partnerships as well. Are going to be crucial for us to make sure that the creative economy of this country continues to grow. And our, just a point on public-private partnerships, our collaboration and the letter of engagement that we signed with the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting earlier in the year is a good example of how we are forward investing to make sure that these partnerships set up the ecosystem for success over the long term.